I would understand that it meant danger, but I did not know. Nobody told me. It's just deep inside, I felt that I had to do something.
Liliane Fortna, author of Winks from Above, opening up to signs and synchronicities to receive little miracles each day. Her background: energy healer, artist, fashion model, an explorer in the Amazon rainforest, and author. She's sharing in this book intuitive experiences with her guides, and it started at a very young age, before she had a way to explain or understand what was really going on. So sharing those experiences is her way of trying to help others connect with their own insight. When you were a kid, imaginary friends and all that that was part of your background.
Well, I can't say that I had one imaginary friend, but since I could not talk with children, I was not allowed to play with anybody. I was always alone, but fortunately, the house was near the beach, and it was a deserted beach. Most of the year. And at the back, the woods. So I was always in nature. And in nature, I had a lot of friends. So I would talk to the plants, I would talk to the trees, I would talk to the ants, the birds, anything that moved. And the animals from the village coming to see me. And they were friends. I relate two stories in my book. I'm sure they were sent by my guide. For instance, the one who came every morning, at least for a certain period of time, to get me. I would hear him bark by the garden gate, and it was time to go to school. Then he would escort me to school, and people who were bullying me normally were not there. And after school, he would wait by the school gate and escort me back home. How do you explain that, And at the time, I took it as normal. It's later on, I thought this was strange, especially he didn't want to play. It's like he had a task to do. Take me to school and bring me back home, and then he would disappear. He was not interested to play. He was friendly, he was trotting beside me. But, he was not, if I threw something or anything, he was not interested. So, and I have so many stories like that. When I thought back about all these stories when I was a child, I said, I was never alone. I had protection. And when I was able to get over the anger I was carrying all along because of the way I was treated, I could see all the beauty that was surrounding me and all the help I received at that time. That's why I want to talk about that. I'm actually thinking of writing one or two books for children. Parents asked me to do that based on my story.
What I like is that this is something that you did have to go back and comb through your diary. Some of it you had just totally forgotten until the illness brought everything to your attention, and then you decided maybe these stories are worth sharing.
Yes, exactly. Because certainly I was able to see the beauty or the fun or the warmth of many of these stories. And I thought I should share them because, I'm not the only one who suffered or had suffered during childhood. There are many people who never had a perfect childhood. And it would be nice maybe to try to revisit their lives back then and then find the beauty of some, or at least of some aspect of their lives. Because when you carry so much anger, it tints everything, and everything is gray, and it prevents you from seeing the beauty of what happened back then. But there was so much. Now I can smile because I forgave everybody who hurt me back then.
Let's revisit that, because you had an interesting childhood.
Yes. But, I had a lot of pain, and that I carried that for quite a long time. But I was not going to do anything about it. First of all, I didn't know what to do. I was just carrying anger and hiding it very well until it exploded and I had a major depression. But, there was so much beauty and so much warmth that was given to me, not by the normal channels, which is from human beings, but from nature, from animals, from me being able to appreciate the beauty of the sky at night, etc. It really fed my soul at that time.
You were traveling all over the world when you got married, the military background with your husband. You had opportunities that a lot of us don't have. And one of them was to be in the Amazon and to potentially oversee some of the the indigenous practices there that had to do with healing. And that would have been absolutely amazing. And then in Korea, you also had some incredible encounters. And you said some of those you look back and thought, why didn't I accept? But the fact you were even there in those places, I think, was a gift.
Yes, I traveled a lot before I got married because I just had the bug in me. I wanted to see the world. So I went to the Amazon way before, and I was dreaming like, some young girls. I want to marry a wealthy man, and I'd like to travel maybe to, the Amazon, to do a trip like that. That would be so interesting. And then guess what? I met a man who was very wealthy, who happened to do some studies in the Amazon. And he told me it would be great to have a woman with me because I could go further in my studies. When I come as a man, I'm a threat. If I come with a woman, it would be different. Yeah. So I started studying and getting ready. And so that's how I went to the Amazon. Another opportunity, you put out there a thought, a desire, and then keep your eyes open and suddenly, poof, it comes to you. And that happened so many times in my life, but I didn't know what it was, you see. And when I was in my 20s, I remember wondering about all that. I had so many episodes, and I wanted to talk to somebody about that, but being raised Catholic, I knew I should maybe not say anything, especially in the 60s. It was still not well. So I kept all that to myself. But now I realize there are still people out there who really feel that they would like to explore maybe a bit more because they feel that there is more to themselves than just their body. But they just don't know where to start. I mean, there are many books now out or videos or that they can watch. But I want to go further, and that's why I wrote this book with me in mind when I was in my 20s. I would have loved to have a book like that would show me that it's normal and what to do. So that's how I wrote the book in the first place, for people out there who are like that.
Well, you talk about, the path to becoming a healer. Given you've been a dancer, you've been multiple, you have a varied background, but the healer, what I have heard is that it takes healing from an actual illness to incorporate that knowing, that learning into practice. And so you checked off that box, the actual illness part.
Yes. Actually, what's interesting is that, as you mentioned, I was in Korea. I was exposed to shamanism, but I didn't have the time. And the third time that I was asked to follow that path is when I decided to follow it. Because when I was in my late 20s, I would see a healer every year, just for good health. So he would maintain me in good health. And early on, he said, you should follow the same path as I do. And I thought it was very nice, but I was very scared because I knew my grandmother had the ability to heal, but I also knew that, or at least I feel that she used it the wrong way. But she was mean-spirited. And I was very scared to have that trait in me. So I absolutely did not want to go that way and discover that I was doing wrong things. So it took me, it took me 3 times to finally get on that path. The third time that I was asked, there was that illness, and doctors could not understand what I had. My husband was traveling at the time, and he could not help me and drive me to my healer in France because we're in Belgium. And I was too weak to drive by myself. So I waited 4 or 5 months before I was able to go to my healer. And the doctors in the meantime tried all kinds of antibiotics, all kinds of things, and nothing would help. And finally I saw my healer. In 5 days, I was back on track. And he told me, I hope you understand understand what it means. And I knew deep inside that, that yes, I had to become a healer. So I accepted. Yet, but 5 weeks later, I was in the US visiting. And it was a time when I was just, maybe becoming a healer. I should not have said yes because I don't think I want. I mean, I was hesitating.
Mm-hmm.
And I was visiting some friends, and because of a snowstorm, there was a change of plans of what she wanted to do with me. So she made an appointment with a card reader, a tarot card reader, who is also a healer and a medium. And as soon as we arrived, he looked at me and said, "We already met." I looked at him and said, "Well, probably in another lifetime." And instead of having me first or my friend first in his office for a reading, an hour reading, he said, "Both of you come inside my office." And then he asked my friend to sit in a chair and me in another one. And he sat in his facing me. And he went into a trance. And for almost 2 hours, he told me my whole life story. I was petrified. I don't think I moved during that time. It was so strange to hear his voice tell me about my life. I did not know the man. And then he said, "You've been contacted for the third time, and this time you cannot fail. You were contacted when you were 39 and 49. And you did not accept. Now you cannot fail." And I was, oh my God, how does he know these things? And I even had slightly forgotten when. And indeed, it was at that age, but that's when I was in Korea and had twice the opportunity to learn about shamanism and healing, etc. So then, yes, then I followed that path. And I went back to Belgium. Then in Paris, I found a shaman who accepted to teach me. And then I went on and on and on to learn him and somebody else. Then I came here, and not far from where we are is the Monroe Institute. I was able to take, 10 different seminars on site, which was fabulous.
Yes.
So because I did not have a degree that shows what I can do as a healer, we don't have that in France. Then here I did become a Reiki master and teacher. So that's where I can show a degree, although I don't necessarily use all of it. It just shows that I'm a healer.
Well, and so one of the reviews, the testimonials for your endorsement from Nancy McMonagle. She was a past president and executive director, the wife of Joe McMonagle, the remote viewer and intuitive psychic. That's a really powerful endorsement.
Yes, I studied with Joe as well.
What did you study?
Remote viewing. I studied with him, and it's absolutely extraordinary to realize that with just a code, a few numbers and letters, you can travel and see things that you can't even imagine you would. You have, of course, to meditate, concentrate, put yourself in the right mode, but it is possible, and it's amazing to discover what we can do. We have to give ourselves credit as humans. We can do so much more than we think we can.
The illness that you had, what was so extraordinary was that no one could figure it out. And when they did, they said it was extremely rare. So congrats on finding something that completely baffled everybody for quite some time.
The second illness. The first illness was the lung. The third illness, the last illness that I had, and I had a surgery actually 3 years ago. So I was a healer, but there were things I just could not do. And that illness that I had, yes, nobody could find out what it was. The only solution I was given was to make a hole in my palate and plug it with a removable plug away. And it was a time when I was very depressed. I could not contact my guides or anything. I was becoming more and more and more depressed until the doctor made me so angry, I bounced back. I was so angry at what he was offering or telling me that suddenly I was back and I said, okay, well, you're back. Then you have to face what it is. And you have to be straight and facing it. And suddenly I changed when I accepted what was going on and said, all right, well, if you have 1 year, 2 years maybe of a good life, then what is the most important? And I started thinking that when, set my priorities. And I did not tell anyone, even my husband did not know, because I wanted to be treated normally, not by people who say, oh God, poor you. I didn't want that. I wanted to be strong and face it on my own, at least during a certain amount of time. And by doing so, suddenly, I started to get guidance again. And it was amazing. Little things were showing me where I should look or what the way I would think of who to contact, etc. And I followed. This time I did follow. And by doing so, after I made my decision, within 2-3 weeks, I had found a perfect doctor, not here, but in Belgium, who was going to see me. I just had to call to make an appointment. And indeed, he was the perfect doctor, and he created a surgery that had never been done before, because what I had never been seen in that area of the body. 6 months later, I was out of the hospital and I'm fine. So what it showed me is that because I spent 1 month in the hospital, I had plenty of time to think. I had my computer, I had all this with me. I could not eat because of the surgery. My mouth had been completely open. I don't know how many stitches. So I was fed via a tube going directly from a pouch through my nose into my stomach. So I was stuck to a bed, basically. But I felt extremely positive. I had a lot of ideas. I felt very lucky to have found the right doctor. Once I started to reopen my mind, etc., etc. So I started to think back of everything that happened to that moment. And that's when I realized I was guided. And I missed the guidance when I was depressed. So I thought back of my story when I was a child, and there were so many stories coming up. Some of them I had to certainly they were reminded to me, so I was writing them down. And certainly I had a lot of stories to tell. And with a twist, all of them had a reason to be written. So I said, well, maybe there is a book to write. And that's when I received guidance from my guides. When I came back here, I would wake up typically around 3:30 at night. I would sit in a chair in the bedroom, a lounging chair, with my laptop. No, at night, no laptop. I would write by hand on a pad, but I learned to write in the dark by putting my thumb as a guide and then moving my thumb each time I write, a new line. And I may not write many lines per page, but at least I can read what I wrote. And I would connect with my guides and ask. I had a lot of questions for them. Sometimes it was about my childhood. I remembered something, but I wanted to be very accurate. I didn't want to embellish a story, and I wanted more truth to what I remembered. So I asked a lot of guidance, a lot of clarification, which I received. So that was fantastic. I got help to write my book, and I feel that what I wrote is as accurate as I think.
The stories that you include, instances where you felt guided or connected, and there was one recurring theme, a male who seemed to have a similar build or a similar look. You said that guy kept showing up in the most unusual places, and then he would disappear. And so you're kind of thinking maybe he had a connection with your guides or was one of your guides.
Well, I think he was one of them, because the taxi driver I had in Paris, if he were a normal man, first of all, when he picked me up, he lifted my suitcase with such ease. I mean, he was a very old man. I could see his face was very wrinkled, but the way he moved was not the way an old man moves. He was very slender, always very dapper. I mean, always extremely well dressed. And then, as he was starting to drive, he would almost constantly keep his eyes on me via the rearview mirror, which was very weird because there was a lot of traffic. And I remember feeling uneasy about that, but at the same time, I felt calm. There was something there that I could not explain. And then when we arrived at the train station, he got my suitcase out, and then he took my hand between his two hands and looked at me very deeply in the eye and said, "We will meet again." And that, oh my God, that was so strange. I still feel the chill when I remember that, because it was so profound at that time. And the discussion we had in the taxi was basically about the topic that it was about intuition. It was about
Well, you had just been to a seminar or a retreat, and he was repeating everything that you had heard at the seminar.
Yes, and you know, I was not expecting a taxi driver to speak with such a language and perfect French. I mean, you know, more like a university professor or someone like that. A beautiful voice. It was amazing, just amazing. And then I had other males. One was in Athens, I remember, in the little church I mentioned. I found out later that church is not open to the public.
Mm-hmm.
But I was there, and when I described what I saw, the lady who was at the head of the Antiquity Museum talked to her sister right away in Greek, so I could not understand. And they invited me the next time I would come to Greece to go to I forgot, but it's a very sacred place. So they wanted to take me there, and I never understood at that time. See, there were many things I did not understand right away. It's gradually as I was studying that I understood a little bit better. But when I asked my guide later, they said, "Oh, because at that time you needed to feel more confident about yourself, and this allowed you to realize that people who knew, after you talked to them about an event that happened, believed that you had power." So anyway, Delphi. That's why they wanted to take me to Delphi.
When you were in danger or in a compromising situation, possibly, you said there was a shadow. There's one instance where you went to dinner with a guy and thought maybe that was probably not a wise decision, but it was, spontaneous, and you're in his house, and you saw a shadow or over, you called it a mask over his face. Can you describe that? Because that's happened more than once. Is that correct?
It's very strange. It's like a sheer mask, but very, very sheer, but it is still there above the eyes, the shape of a mask. And it makes the eyes look very strange, actually. I don't even remember when it started. I just know that it's danger. It means danger to me. It gives me a warning, and it's up to me to find out what to say. But all the time that it happened, as far as I remember, I always found a way out. And in that case, I told him a story, which was true, but I don't think that night I had done that, is to tell my neighbor where I went, with whom, and the address if possible, just in case. And I casually brought that into the conversation, and I said, "Oh yeah. Well, my neighbor always knows. She's very concerned about me. So I always, if she's not there, I leave a note on, you know." And the guy suddenly got up, and at the time we didn't have a cell phone. He got up, gave a call and suddenly had to go. He had to leave his house. That was great because I could leave.
So do I.
Yeah. So things like that, you see, and but at that time, you see, I did not realize exactly what happened. I just did because it felt my intuition was telling me that's what you have to do, or I would understand that it meant danger, but I did not know. Nobody told me. It just deep inside, I felt that I had to do something. That's why I'm sure there are so many people like me out there. And it would be so nice for them to understand that they can get so much more if they knew what to do or understand better or talk to their guides or angels more often. Because I did not talk to anybody at that time. I just did. People or saw signs without realizing they were signs. I just used them. Or when I was in my late teenagehood, the story in the subway when I was coming back from the theater, I suppose, with a friend. We're in the subway, crowded, and we were holding ourselves to a pole. And I arrived at my station, and automatically I put my hand on my little fat bag. It was a small bag for the theater, and it was hanging on my shoulder. And it was totally flat, which means my wallet was gone. Immediately, I turned around, grabbed the first person behind me, grabbed the arm, the person moved, grabbed the other person's arm, that person moved, third person arm, and that person had my wallet in her hand. You see, so things like that. And I was in my late teenagehood at the time, and I was, I don't know what to do. I wish I would be able to do more of that. It was always in me. These type of things would happen, but I could not talk to anybody about that. So now we can talk more. People are more open about all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go out there, and I'm preparing actually a course. I'm teaching right now to some people who read my book, and they really wanted, when are you going to teach? So I decided to teach them. So I'm creating a course gradually, week after week. And that will develop into probably a 6 to 8 week seminar once a week online, and then possibly 1 or 2 weekends in person. So I want to go out there and let people know it's simple. You don't have to do anything fantastic. You don't have to spend a lot of money. All it is inside you. It's just a change in attitude, open your eyes a little bit more, get rid of baggages, mental, emotional baggages you don't need anymore, etc. So it's not that complicated if you want to move forward.
Liliane Fortna. Website, wingsfromabove.com.
There's a review from Japan. I realized I've been missing many signs in my life. This book taught me how to regain the ability to receive and interpret the winks from above. Thanks to Liliane, I'm going to enjoy living this moment consciously. And that's Japan.
Yes, well, we are all the same. We're human beings, and we have a life here that is it's temporary. We are eternal in some ways. Our soul is eternal, all of us, and it's just a passage, in our life. We might come back to live another life here on Earth under another form, maybe. I don't know. But we're here to experience the life as a human being. And I feel for myself now, I understand after, I'm old enough now to have made a lot of mistakes and learn from them. So now I feel it's time to pass on the wisdom. I love the word wisdom. To me, it means you live long enough to make a lot of mistakes and learn from them. But anyway, that's the way I feel. So I just want to pass on what I understand, what helped me, and it's available to anybody who is interested in getting more out of life. So there are steps to take, and I talk about that. I try to be as precise as possible within my knowledge of what are the blockages, maybe to assess and work on, and how you can develop your abilities to see the signs and not only to see them, but also be able to recognize them and use them. And it gives us power on our life. Instead of feeling victims of whatever happens, we are victor because whatever happens gives us strength. And that's what I learned from all the difficulties I had as a child. Actually, I reached a point where not only I forgave the people who caused me a lot of heartache and problems, actually I went as far as thanking them because they allowed me to become who I am today, and they gave me strength. I mean, I had to work on becoming stronger. So each time I was hurt, it's like a little step up instead of down and becoming a victim. So that's what I want to convey to people, that yes, there are things that are knocking us down, but we are very resilient. We can get up and use whatever was done to us as a step to move not only forward but also up. So that's what I'd like for people to get and use and have a more meaningful and fun life.
Well, and you said when you were going back and finding some of these things in your diary, which it helps to journal or to keep diaries, going back and reliving that and discovering how important that actually was at that time.
Yes. It was excruciating sometimes to relive what I went through in my childhood. And this is probably why, I was very angry and I did not want to revisit and address the problem. But it was very cathartic because I relived them. It was difficult, but it allowed me to understand why the people who hurt me were behaving that way. It was not necessarily directed at me. It was because of the pain they were going through themselves. And of course, I was the only person they could relate to. So I was the one who would get, or the anger and angst they were experiencing. So I understood that. And once I understood that, I felt more compassion. And then I started thanking them in many ways because, I learned a lot from what went on. And it made me now, when I work, especially as a healer, have more compassion towards others because I do understand the pain that they're going through. Because I see people not only for, health problems, but oftentimes the health problem is related to the aches, the pains that they are going through. So I can understand better people. If I had not gone through all these difficulties myself, it would be sometimes more difficult. But I do understand very deeply.
When you were separated from your family, met your mother and your sisters years later, you described what that was like, and that there was compassion, but maybe no empathy. It was the best word is distant, maybe, it was a relationship, but there was nothing that actually fulfilled it or gave you any kind of connection. Does that make sense?
Well, my mother, between the age of 15, when I was sent to France to live with my grandmother because of the war in Vietnam, and age 48, I thought my mother had died. I did not know that she was alive. And it's my father found her because when she retired, she lived in France actually. She came to France, which nobody knew, when I was, I think, 12 or 13, but she didn't look for me. And I can understand that. She's a Asian woman, and I can understand why. So there is no hardship there. It's just that I did not have the connection that you grow when you live with a person. So I did not grow up with a mother, and most of my childhood, until I was 9, I was with my grandmother, which was very, very difficult. And afterwards, I was in boarding school. till I was 18. So I didn't grow up with a family, and to have a mother was strange. It was almost disturbing for me to think that I had a mother, because when I was a teenager, I had to go through through the pain of not having a female in my life. I saw the other girls could talk to their mother or aunt or anybody. I didn't have anybody. I can't say I missed my mother, because you don't miss what you don't know. But I missed the presence of a woman to whom I could talk as a teenager, about feminine things, etc.
Yeah.
Talk to anybody. So, and then afterwards, I got over that, and my mother is dead, fine. But there was no real feeling. I was not missing her as a person because I had not known her. So to find her in later life was a little bit disturbing, in the sense that I had to face again all that episode. And when I first saw her, I had 2 half-sisters and half-brother. And they wrote me when they found out that I existed. They sent me pictures. So I knew how they looked. And when I arrived in Marseille, in the south of France, where they all lived, to visit them for the very first time, I saw them on from the train as it was entering the train station, but there was no feeling. I was expecting to read about people who find a long lost relative, close relative, like a child or a parent, and then there is something in you that happened, and there was absolutely nothing. It was blank. And then something very strange happened. Every night, I was with her for a couple of weeks. Every night, I would ask her a lot of questions, of course, about Vietnam and her and life over there, which I was discovering. At that time, I did not know what to be out of body was, but I had several experiences of that. She would talk. We were facing each other at the table, and suddenly I was at the back of the room looking at 2 women talking. I could see my back and my head bobbing periodically, and I could see my mother speaking. And I was there during the length of the conversation, observing like if it was a movie. That was strange, but there was no feeling. So when I was able to ask my guides later on, they said, well, we had to protect you. You were going through a lot, because it was, it's a life-changing experience. Yeah. So you have to remain neutral in you, because you needed time to absorb what was happening. So that's what they said to me when I asked the question. Because later on I understood you can ask questions and you may get an answer. And to me, it's an answer that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, those things happen, and you don't understand. That's why now I'm so happy to have learned much, much more. There is still a lot to learn, but much, much more how to deal with all these things, out of body, and etc. I can understand all that much better. I studied that at the Monroe Institute, and it really made sense and brought me a lot of answers to questions that I had about what was happening sometimes and why was it out of body, what I was doing there. Now, I'm up on a ceiling looking down, and what am I doing here? And so it's wonderful to have been able to get an answer and study with William Buhlman.
Yes.
Body experiences. That was fantastic.
Well, you have a lot of accolades from some of the people who are teachers at the Monroe. For your book on Amazon, there are a lot of endorsements, and definitely if when people are studying that consciousness and trying to figure out how to get more in touch with those abilities, that is a wonderful resource.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and now I want to pass it on to let people know that, hey, I'm not special. Anybody who is interested can also learn. I'm not trying to convince people. I'm just trying to say, hey, if you would like, I have some answers maybe for you. You just have to work at it a little bit, but it's not very complicated. It's not too demanding if you want to do it. So that's what I offer.
And for anyone who does get your book, then you also offer, it's a workbook from your website?
Yes. Yes, you go and you can download the workbook. It's 15 pages, but it follows the book. So as I ask a question, for instance, how about yourself? In Point to Ponders, the part 2, there are lots of stories, and I try to bring people to think about similar stories. I mean, different, but similar. That came to me as I was reading some of my stories to friends as I was writing the book. And suddenly one would say, oh, it reminds me of. And another one would say, yeah, I had something similar, etc. So I thought, well, people reading the book probably will have something different, of course, but it will bring them back to something they also experience. So it's important for them to maybe jot down a few words. So when they are finished with the book, they can look through their workbook and say, oh, I had a lot of that too, and realize that, they too can learn and get so much more out of their lives than what they think they can.
Winks from Above, opening up to signs and synchronicities to receive little miracles each day. And you've given a lot of different examples and ideas for people to have, that maybe something that's happening in their own life is a spirit guide or an angel or someone trying to get their attention so they can maybe go through life a little easier without hitting so many roadblocks.
Exactly, because we all have those guides or angel, and they come under different shape. But, if we are open, suddenly we realize, and then the more we open, the more we realize that something that happened maybe even 2 years ago is related to something happening today. If we emphasize, it's good to have a journal, to write down some of the most important things happening in your life, because later on you might go back to it. And as I say in the book, I say, if in your journals you find the word weird, strange, bizarre, just stop and reread, because that's probably where you had a sign of something that is a synchronicity of some sort. So it's good to reread that part, because very likely there is something there for you to read again.
An example on one of yours would be when you went to the elevator and instead of having to push the button, the door opened just for you. And I thought, because it was too bizarre, I thought, well, I will ask downstairs. And I thought, no, wait a minute. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, guys. So something important. I find that my guides are like friends around me. I don't shout out or anything. I mean, I'm very respectful, of course, and thank them, but they're more like friends. And I already told them, I said, hey, don't perch up there, because I'm not going to lift my head all the time. It hurts my neck. You're beside me. We're sitting together. You're working together. So, and they can have a lot of, they have a good sense of humor too. They did things that were very funny to me sometimes. And I'm angry at first, and then afterwards, God, this was too funny. So I consider them more like friends, good friends that I have around and I can talk to, and I can call anytime. One episode I had 2-3 months ago that was very interesting. I had to have a CAT scan every year because of the surgery I had. I still had to have a full CAT scan of my head, and this one took so long. It took over an hour, and they pin your head down. It's like in a cage. You're like in a cage, really. I mean, that's what you see. And the noise was horrendous, much worse than usual. And normally I have my way. I'm on a boat and I relax, and I'm fine. But this time it was so hard to bring images that were soothing, and I was almost panicky. I could feel my heart rate go up. And I was almost panicky. So I said, I need help, please, I need help. And suddenly I felt
Michael, Michael is one of my archangels coming to rescue me when I need so. And I felt the warmth. I couldn't see, but I could feel like wings or something around me, the warmth that calmed me. And then my dad has departed 3 years ago, and we never were very good friends when he was here, but now he's part of my guides. I know that. So I can ask him for help. I didn't ask him for help specifically, but suddenly I said, oh, ma pauvre fille. That's the way he would talk to me. And that was his voice. And I was, what? And suddenly I was having the CAT scan, and I felt so calm and peaceful.
It worked. Yeah.
An example, when I was panicky, there was no reason really, but it was so uncomfortable that I could feel that I had difficulty breathing. I could feel my heart rate getting up, and I was almost panicky. I called, and within a few seconds, I would say I felt. So that's an example of help I received. So it could be anything else. We can always use help whenever it's needed.
Liliane Fortna, website, wingsfromabove.com.
Sounds like you've got in the works, one way or the other, online teaching.
And writing a book for children, I think I mentioned that to little children. Parents asked me to write a book or books to children based on Wings from Above. So I'm thinking of fairy tales to empower little kids because they're already connected, but I want them to be able to stay connected. It's okay. So I'm preparing that. And somebody, 2 or 3 other people asked me to write a book for teenagers. So that would be more like a novel, something that I would make those teenagers heroes or heroines, and they would use guides, synchronicity, whatever, but it has to be in their own language. So that's also something that that's in the work. I don't know when it will be done, but that's something I will have at some point.
I think you should include your frog, the frog that lives in your yard.
Oh, Fifi. Oh, Fifi. Can I send to you? I took a picture 2 days ago. I have a little statue of Buddha among the flowers, and Fifi was sitting in front of Buddha, looking at Buddha.
Yes, I would love, please. I would love to share that.
A cute picture. I mean, it's adorable. I said, I can't miss that. So I went back outside and took the picture. I mean, it's so adorable, It's
perfect timing.
Those things in life are important, and we have to see our surrounding with the eyes of a child too. That's something I talk in my book. Go back to seeing the world with the eyes of a child, and it is there. The little girl, the little boy are there, and we forget that. But if we look at the world around us and it's magic, we are in awe. There are so many things, like my frog. I mean, I go every day to look for her and talk to her.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so silly, but it makes me feel good because it's part of nature. And she was here last year. She came back this year. And then the tiny pond that I created 3 years ago is full of tadpoles. I mean, it has probably, I would say, 50 tadpoles.
Oh, wow. Yeah. If you build it, they will come.
All these things make my heart sing every morning.
We have these abilities that aren't taught. And so books like yours help people to connect the dots of, oh my gosh, this happened for me and that. So I'm glad you're going to do one book for kids and one book for teenagers, because every little step is an opportunity to share the insight, the wisdom that everybody can access.
I want it to be available to anybody, because there are many books that are excellent out there, but sometimes they're a little bit too complicated for people who are not used to this type of language.
Mm-hmm.
So something that is more in the vocabulary of everyone, because we can relate to it.
Yes.
I mean, sometimes you have some beliefs that will prevent you from going there, but a lot of people are very open-minded, and the way I talk anyway, it's for anybody according to you. I'm not saying to believe one way or another. We're all different.
Mm-hmm.
The key receive whichever way you receive. It doesn't matter to me. Any way is right. The key is to understand and it's meaningful to you. That's how I see that. We all have that. I mean, all of us. And look at real children. They're so close to the other side of the veil. I mean, to them, it's so easy. And I started with my granddaughter, actually, last year. She was 4.
Mm-hmm.
And she would play in a grassy area, but there was a stink bug. And she doesn't like stink bugs at all, at least at that time. So I said, well, okay, put your hands on your heart, both hands, close your eyes. Okay, and now, can you see in your mind, can you see the stink bug? Can you see? Yes. I said, okay, talk to her. Now tell her that you'd like to play here, but she scares you a little bit. If she could go away for just a little bit so you could play. And at the same time, I was saying that to her, the stink bug was moving away. I told my granddaughter, just open your eyes. And she went, the eyes of a child, totally marveled. Oh my God. And I said, now, you can do that for almost anything. Put your hands on your heart, close your eyes, see what you don't want or what you want, and just talk. And you can do that with animals. You can do that with sometimes about another person, whatever. So now, so we can talk like that to children. And and she's not afraid of stink bugs anymore. She can talk to them.
That's a gift. That's what I think children need to hear from an adult that says, this is how it works. Yeah.
And it's important to regain your heart of a child, to feel like a child sometimes, just to throw away, the knowledge you have and look at things like a child would.
Yes.
And things are so much easier that way.
I want to see the picture. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for your time. And for more information about classes, winksfromabove.com.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you.
Links are in the description for the show.
And thank you for listening.